Okay.
Hello, good morning. Welcome in, everybody.
Karishma. Hey, Karishma.
Oh, hi,
Morrow. Hi,
Kate.
Morrow. Steph. Steph's been steady. I think Steph's been with us for 6 months now. Hi, Sean.
It's Lauren and Alan. Welcome in, everybody. It's fun to see familiar names come back every month. That's really, and some new
Alan.
folks.
Yeah. Welcome. I think there's some new names in the chat
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
As we're getting ready, why don't you all just sort of drop a word or two to get yourself into the conversation today? If you're new, long-time listener, first-time caller, however that works. That dated me. That was kind of an old reference.
That was.
Anyways, feel free to drop a note just to get yourself here on this beautiful Friday morning. If you're in Seattle, the sun is out, so we admire
Mhm.
you for being here on a Zoom call when the sun
Yeah.
is out on a Friday. That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Fantastic. Happy
Oh,
Friday.
DJ, I'm glad you just became aware and you're in. Welcome.
Cool, cool. Great.
Patagonia. Oh my
Oh, Courtney. That's like your, wait.
I do love Patagonia. The company or the location?
Both are great.
Cool, both cool.
Now,
Um,
Scott, is it the company or is it the location, Scott? We're curious. The
the
location.
location. Okay. Wow, how gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
Patagonia.
assuming you've been there, Courtney. Is this true?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. It's
So
gorgeous.
fun fact about Courtney for all of you, been to over 100 countries now? Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what number, what are you on now? Is it like
I've lost
101?
count a little bit after that, but I
Yeah.
think it's like 104, 105. But yeah, there's still so much of the world to see. It's kind of alarming. But you
Yeah.
can every time I go somewhere, I learn about 9 million other places I want to go. So
That's fantastic.
yes. All right.
Fantastic. Okay, let's get going. So let's see here. Sam, you
Yeah.
want to
So
click?
welcome. Today we're going to talk about building trust in teams. If you remember, we are in the middle of our power of collaboration model, which has 5 different elements. So we introduced the whole model, and then last month we talked about our compelling why. And today we're going to talk about building trust, which is pretty
Fantastic.
key to everything. As you remember, this is kind of why we do what we're doing here every month. We want it to be anchoring. We want connection. We know that we are living in a time where people are desperate for connection. I don't know if you guys saw what happened in Portugal and Spain last week, where they lost power. Both countries lost power for 12 hours, and to see everybody in the streets dancing and reading and playing together made me smile. Some focus, like what's a tactical, practical tool that you can have, and some inspiration, because who doesn't want to be inspired? So that's why we're gathering. Ways for you to participate: use the chat at any time. If you haven't said hi, say hi now. Reflect personally, and then with colleagues, team, however you want to engage with this work afterwards. Sam sends out incredible resources after every one of the calls, including the recording. And so stick around for those. Maybe get a learning cohort together of people you want to talk to these. I am a verbal processor, if you haven't noticed. And so I always love processing with people. And then keep joining us. We are really excited to see a little community being created here. And then between sessions, take one action, just one, if that can be your challenge. And then share your learning with others is always something you want to bring into the world.
Fantastic. So as a reminder, before we jump into today's content, I'm sure you all have seen this. We can't encourage you enough to sign up. It really is remarkable. The Enneagram is one of our favorite tools we've used. We've used it for well over a decade. You all, the folks that are part of our webinar series, there is a discount code, so feel free to register. Next month, we are going to talk about the building inclusion component of collaboration, and this is the tool that we often use in that particular component. So it'd be great to even have that experience for yourself. Sam will put it in the chat, and then feel free to register. Also, there's some people that have registered their whole teams. If you want that, just reach out to Sam and she'll get you easily registered for a kind of a bulk registration. Great. Hello from Zimbabwe. Hello, Grace.
Oh, Grace,
Fantastic. Welcome. So feel free to join us. Great.
please do.
Good. So as Courtney said, this is sort of today's focus is we're going to talk a bit about building trust. And Courtney, I think there was a chat question you wanted to throw up there.
There is. So to get us started, share one or two words you associate with trust. So put that in the chat. One or two words you associate with trust.
And Sam, if you want to flip to the next slide. There we go. Great.
Okay. Authenticity, honesty, and transparency, freedom
Great.
and innovation, safety, braving, relationship, accountability, consistency, a lot of transparency. Yep.
Yeah.
Count onable, honest. Yes. Yeah. Honesty and commitment. So we're seeing a lot of honesty, transparency, accountability. So we're seeing some themes.
Yes.
Yes. Integrity. Yep. Authenticity. Yep. Those all resonate with me for
Great.
sure.
For me, there's just like, I have deep safety with people I trust.
Yeah.
I just notice I'm like, I know that if we get tangled up, we'll sort it out. I know
Yeah.
that if, I can kind of show up as myself and we'll sort it out. And so there is like safety there with people that just really feel trustworthy to me. Consistency. Beautiful, Justina.
Experience. Yeah. Consistency. That's true too.
Fantastic. So why, of course, this is not news to anybody. We know that trust is one of the, key foundational aspects of really just leading, of being on teams, of really just being in relationship with people. And so when we're working together, especially in the context of collaboration, there is a way that we want to know that we can count on each other, that there's going to be healthy transparency, healthy connection. And as we know, there is an increase in just our psychological safety. I spoke a bit to that. Like there is a way that we can be more vulnerable. We reduce this idea of getting tangled up around miscommunications. We clean them up quicker. And there is a resiliency during change. And I think this is really relevant right now, given the speed at which we are constantly having to iterate, shift, and change, is the people that you surround yourself with, the people that you're in relationship with at work and at home. Is there the trust there so that you go together is the idea. And then, as you know, when it's not there, you feel it. It's obvious. It's palpable. There is no mystery that trust is missing. There's disconnect. There's self-protection. There's often either an increase in conflict, or sometimes there's a massive decrease in conflict because there's not enough trust to even have conflict. And then overall progress just can slow down. When there's trust, there is a willingness to move in a certain way. Because like I said, that if it doesn't turn out, you'll quickly recover and, carry on. So that's one of the keys. And of course, if anything else comes up for you, always add on in the chat about, why does it matter for you personally? What are you noticing? And this is a big, big piece of work, I would say, that goes throughout everything we do with teams and leaders is this. Like, if we could do anything, how do we kind of create more trust amongst all of each other? So beautiful.
One of the things I was going to add, Shannon, is I think when there's stress in the system, right? So, which is, now and every day and all the time, and there's change or anything like that, I think there's additional story writing. And what I mean by that is something's happening over there and I don't have full clarity on what it is. So I write a whole story about what's happening.
Yes.
And if I trust people, I can interrupt the story and get clarification. I can say, Shannon, I'm seeing this and here's what I think is happening. Will you either tell me that's true or talk me down off this ledge I've created? And if there's not trust, the stories I write get bigger and bigger and less clean.
That's right.
So that's something I think about trust is, can I interrupt my own storytelling?
That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to launch a quick poll just for yourself as you look at, really. Oh, sorry, wrong.
We haven't done that. We haven't
wrong
done
poll. Poll number one.
Wrong poll.
There we
Sorry,
go. As we look to our it's flipping. Do we see why it's flipping?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Did that work? Are we in?
There we go. There we go.
She's last month too. I'm having I'm poll dysfunctional. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so a little bit of reflection on your own experience. So when you think about trust, when you think about what it takes for you to build it, to develop it, to sustain it,
Mhm.
what is the biggest barrier for you and you can just think about yourself and your immediate team, the people that you have to work with the most. What do you notice gets in the way? Mm, Great. We'll take some time for that. Courtney, any thoughts from you just as you're considering, like when you look at
Yeah, I'm just
your
watching
team?
here.
Yeah,
Oh, so somebody put other, so maybe Anna, that was you, psychological safety. Yes. So the
right.
biggest barrier. So yes, if you feel like lack of course, of not feeling safe in the environment, absolutely. Limited access to feedback doesn't seem to be anybody's barrier. Minimal sharing of information. Oh, what a great what a great introduction for today's tool.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so let's end the poll and then share the results.
great. Okay.
All right. So as you can see, self-protection and lack of vulnerability, we're going to talk about that today. The limited access to feedback, we're going to talk about the misalignment of values. I think that can be really tricky. And those of you who were with us last month, or if you weren't, you could get the recording. But I think naming that compelling why and making sure we're all in the why together can really work on that. Past experiences, oof, it's really hard to dig ourselves out of old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll say something about that one.
Yeah.
So often we get approached by teams that are in pain, that are struggling, and we'll ask the question, how long? Like, how long has this been going on? And sometimes we'll hear 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And so, as you're leading teams, I want you to keep that in mind that if you've let something build up for 2, 3, 4 years, the way out of it's going to take a bit longer. So there's some growth perhaps of how do we begin to sort of address those things more proactively. So I just want to name that we hear it often that those past experiences build, build, build.
Yep.
So just
Yep.
check with yourself about that a little bit. Good.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah. TJ, I also see the suspected differences in motives, self-promotion versus team company promotion. And that's an interesting one. I think that goes back to a couple of things. One, are you aligned on that compelling why again? And have real tough conversations about how are we aligned? And again, that storytelling that I do, is that what's happening? Which is very possible, of course. Or is there just kind of a lack of communication or understanding? So
Right.
those are all absolutely common, common for sure. All right. So on the flip side of that, so we know there's some barriers, but what's one thing you can think about that a leader has done in your experience that built trust with you, that enabled you to build trust with them? Oh, vulnerability.
One of my biggest ones is that they return back if there is a big breakdown or a conflict. Like there's a lack of blame. So in the midst of conflicts or breakdowns, the what I notice I trust is the orientation to how do we get through this together. That they're like we're both in it, and that's a big trust build for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Same. I also really like, I think Justina, you said earlier, consistency. Like I appreciate that I trust that they'll tell me if I'm off course. Right.
Yep.
There's a belief that like I have a lot of autonomy and I can do what I want, but I trust that Shannon will say, whoa, whoa, or Carol will say, have you thought about if I am off course, which allows me to not be nervous or not be bold or trying new things or taking some risks. And I really appreciate knowing that I have confidence in that. And that really makes me feel trusted and valued.
I
Um,
think what's important to point out here, if you look at everybody's comments,
yeah.
they are all in the relational realm.
Yep.
This isn't oh they never have typos in their slide decks or they like it's not in the technical realm necessarily. Yes, I think a part of it is like being good at your job, but what I see here is this way that the relationship is intact, whether it's through vulnerability, transparency, conflict, safety, acknowledging mistakes. You can hear like the high EQ that is involved
Mm-hmm.
with these comments. So really, really fantastic. Okay, great. Okay, so Today we're going to do a really high overview of a tool, a model that is really useful when it comes to how do we sort of expand and increase trust within the people we're working with. And those of you who have worked with us before, you may have seen this, so feel free to be a co-lead in the chat and chime in anything that you've learned about it yourself. And so the Johari window is one way where we can easily see sort of how we might increase trust, feedback, transparency, vulnerability, sharing of information, you name it. It's a really simple way of relating to that. So with that, Courtney, do you want to kind of set up
Sure.
the four windows, or if you
Yeah.
want to say any more for context about
No, sure. So this is the Johari Windows started by two gentlemen back in the 60s. So this is an oldie but a goodie named Joe and Harry. So Johari Window, very creative. And so really it's a window pane. And so there's kind of four quadrants, and it's really about our sharing and our feedback and how we know ourselves and how we share ourselves with others. And we're using this, of course, as a way to talk about how you might build continued trust with people. So the first window we're going to talk about is the open window. And the open window is what's known to me about me and what's known to others about me. And so this is just kind of how we show up in the world. I was just telling Shannon and Sam that, I mean, my niece wrote a poem about me. And so she said she had to describe me. She's got long brown hair that's going gray, and she wears glasses, and she's very loud. So these were all the characteristics that are known to me and known to everybody else. And then we go down to the hidden. And that's things that are known to me, but unknown to others. And I would say generally unknown to others. Maybe this is where my hidden area is for my people, where I'm a little bit more vulnerable. I share a little bit more about myself. And in the work context, I would say people always get nervous with the Johari window that I wait at work, I'm supposed to share all my deep darks. No, what it can be is that it's what's known to me is what I value at work, what my goals are, what my mission is, how you can work best with me, how I like my coffee. I mean, those kinds of things can be shared from your hidden window where you can open that a little bit. So then next I go to unseen. So that's the top right window. And that is things that are known to others, but are unknown to me. So I like to give the example, I was a teacher for a long time, and my students always had plenty of things to tell me about myself that I didn't know. Like one time I walked in the classroom and students were doing an impression of me. And I apparently, when I think, I tapped my nose, and they were all these things that I didn't know about myself. And so that kind of feedback is something that opens that unseen. It becomes no longer unseen to me. But there's a plenty of ways we're walking around in the world and being observed, and
Yep.
we don't know them. Scary, but true. And then the bottom right-hand corner are things that are unknown. They're unknown to me and they're unknown to others. And it's that big, deep well of undiscovered gifts and maybe not gifts, all sorts of things that are really there. So that's the four quadrants of the Johari window.
So before we move on, feel free, if there's any questions about these four quadrants, feel free to, please drop
Yes,
a
please.
question in the chat. I'm watching the chat. And so just what's important is that you can get in your brain right now the understanding of these four possible areas to kind of, when it comes to leadership, for you to be aware, like, do I know these four areas about myself? Am I aware that there's things I don't know about myself? Am I aware that there's things that I'm hiding? Am I aware that there's things that I'm wide open about? And am I aware that there's a whole lot I don't know?
Yeah.
And nor do you. And that's the first step of this. So it looks like no questions at this point.
No
Great.
question.
Sam, you want to flip to the next slide? Great. So do you want me to speak to this or?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, great. So the idea is when you think about the four quadrants in this window, they call it, the idea is that you want to be open enough that you're pushing into all four quadrants. So if you imagine the top left, that's fully open. You know it, I know it. What you want as a leader is that you want to push a bit into your unseen window. You want to move yourself toward being more curious about what do I not know about myself that others might know about me. You also want to push into that hidden window, which is how might I create some more healthy exposure for myself? How might I say things out loud that I might only be holding in my mind and my heart. And then, of course, if you look at just development as leaders and teams, you want to be pushing into that unknown, which is, are we moving toward possibility, untapped potential, the mystery of what we can create together? And so you want to sort of look at how you might spread yourself into all four quadrants.
Mm.
With that, and maybe actually, do we want to talk about size of windows yet, or should we wait a second on that one? Kind of.
I think you can go ahead. I think
Okay.
it's an interesting thing. Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about, so right here on this slide, the orange box is what they call your window,
Mhm.
the open part. So all of us have different sizes of windows. So if you can imagine mapping yourself onto, like for me, I have a large window that's open this way. Is that right, Courtney? I was gonna
Yeah, it's open vertically. So
very
Sam, put
open
it one slide
vertically.
back.
I'm very open. There's not a whole lot I hide.
Yeah. Yes.
But I also tend to struggle with maybe moving more toward what do I not know about myself and what do I not see and how do I learn more about that? So there's times where we're just more in our comfort zone.
Yep.
My Derek, who works on our team, he has a longer window across the top, which means he's very open to people telling him things about what he doesn't know about himself. And but he's not as open of sharing himself. And so there's a way that you can kind of start mapping your own self onto this and be curious about it. If you want to flip to the next slide, Sam. So
Yeah.
the two ways you can do this. So if I was going to focus, because my window's this way, if I was going to focus on opening my window across the top, I would ask for more feedback. I would seek more reflective feedback, feedback from others. I would ask more questions. I would be open to what people can see about me that I can't see. If you need to open it the other direction, if you're more skinny across the top and you need to push more into that hidden and unknown, your stretch is to share more about yourself, as Courtney said, your values, your insights, your thoughts, your ideas, your mission, what motivates you, what you expect from other people. All of that is on behalf of opening your window that direction. So two big focus areas that really help build trust, healthy transparency, increasing sharing of information within an organization. Anything else you want to add, Courtney? I
Yeah,
told
I
Courtney
think
before this call, I always get a little tangled up. There's like my brain struggles remembering which direction to move things after 20 years of talking about this. But please add on.
yeah. So I would say too that kind of that dialogue between the sharing and the feedback and what you learn and what you share and is kind of I think what will open the unknown is that combination of those two things because we'll be surprised by things, our colleagues will be surprised by our reaction, whatever those things are. The other thing I want to say that I think opens our unknown area and thinking about this in work and with colleagues is trying new things, is taking risks in the workplace. We don't know what we can create together. So when I think about Johari kind of as a team, that we could try something new, and that's our unknown window. And we'll share and get feedback on that new thing, but we don't know what kind of strengths or possibilities there are until we kind of try new things. So I think there's like an element of risk a little
Yep.
bit into getting into that unknown area.
Any,
Mhm.
so Steph, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but what else is in the unknown is innovation,
Yep.
possibility, the future, potential. Like,
Yep.
how have I not yet stepped fully into what I'm capable of? It's any like genius insights or ideas that haven't popped yet. And if you imagine that between giving and receiving feedback and having healthy vulnerability and sharing within your team, and if you're pushing more toward that, there's that built-in safety where all of a sudden you are a bit more willing to take a stretch or a risk. And we've seen teams and organizations that get stuck and just wanting to kind of be in that open window, which is just what we know. It's safe. You know it, I know it. We're just going to hang out right here. So there is a healthy risk that's needed to step into the hidden, the unseen, on behalf of really moving into that unknown, which is where that's where I see teams have their breakthrough and their transformations. They're willing to step into, we don't know yet, and we trust each other enough that we're going to get there. We're going to figure it out together. Great. Gotta thank you for that. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steph. Great question.
Well, and we also, I will say I want to say something about the size of the window. Shannon did mention that everybody's window sizes are different, and that's fine. And that's the way, and I will say it is also possible to have too open of a window. I think we all know people who are like, oh, I didn't need to know that part. And I was
TMI, as they
yeah,
say.
I was debriefing an Enneagram with a woman who is from another country, and she talked about, all this sharing culturally isn't something we do. It's a very like American thing centered. She works at a US company. And so even that, to be aware of kind of the cultural differences, or I think even like our social identities and what we feel comfortable sharing. So there is also, of course, that lens we always want to pay attention to of, um, you know,
Context.
that's the context of every human, and that our sizes are different. And some of us, we want to be careful of the sharing. So your window can be too big, but most of us probably need to work on what's our little stretch for ourselves.
Yeah. So I think that what Courtney's naming is so important is the context.
Yep.
So where are you in this point of time? What has informed you historically? What is in your culture? What are the sort of the norms of what's appropriate to share and receive feedback on? There's also data that shows that when we're going through massive change and disruption, often everybody's windows will close a little bit. It's a bit of a self-protection mechanism, especially when you're confronted immediately with something that's sort of jarring. So your windows will shift over time. And there's eras where you can probably remember like, oh, there was a lot of trust, a lot of sharing, a lot of feedback was present. I felt very safe and my window was probably quite open. And then depending on another context, you're like, no, I held back. I know that. I know I kind of went in, I stopped sharing as much. I didn't trust the people around me and my window got smaller. So it is a contextual and time thing. Okay, great. We'll do the poll. Not that poll. Let's see, poll number 2. Oh, hey, Sam, do you have any bright ideas oh, no, I got it relaunched. There we go. Great. Thank you. Okay.
Which area of the Johari window do you see you could work on in your own leadership?
So we got open, which is this idea of how might I increase what information I'm sharing? How might I gather feedback? Maybe reveal more? Yeah. How might I develop my own untapped potential or possibility?
Okay, we're just waiting for
I'm going to work on gathering feedback, Courtney.
I know, same. I don't.
I always laugh that I'm like,
feedback when I ask for it, which is not always when everyone wants to give it. So that is something I'm very much working on.
yeah,
Is feedback should be something I'm open to. And that doesn't have to be in that moment. You're definitely free. We'll talk about feedback sometime. You're definitely free to say, not now. Can we talk tomorrow?
yeah.
But I need to get feedback when people are wanting to give it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, fantastic. I'm going to end
it and share it, Shannon.
Yep.
There we go. Ooh, unseen.
We
Gather
love
feedback. Oh, it's all of us. We're all on the same team.
None of us want to hear anything about ourselves. There's a couple of us that are open to it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So
a couple of hidden folks. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So no surprise.
Yeah.
One of, we do a lot of work around feedback. And I think what's true is why we don't want it is so few people are well trained on how to give it in a way that really is about developing and empowering people. And we also haven't been really trained on how to receive it in a way that makes a difference, where we can take really good care of ourselves and still let it in and know what to do with it and have it make a difference to ourselves. So it doesn't surprise me, so this is, we'll make a note that this will be a great future conversation around sort of this idea of giving and receiving feedback and how might we build our capacity to be in that space. That's great.
Yeah.
Good. Fantastic.
Thanks for the solidarity, everybody. So how
I
does
feel better about myself.
How does the Johari build trust? Well, I think hopefully you're seeing connections, but being known by ourselves and by others. This is where the trust lives. And at the very beginning, a lot of you talked about feeling seen and transparency and authenticity. And we can't know if that's true if we're not open about that, about what is authentic and what is transparent. So I think that open area, the unseen area, we all know that feedback, we want to open our window to the horizontal direction, that feedback can close this gap on things I don't know about myself. And maybe some of them are very easy fixes. Also, we always forget this about feedback. Sometimes it's gifts we don't know that we have. Sometimes it's a celebration of ourselves when we're hard on ourselves. So sometimes feedback is great.
Yep.
And we also need to make space for that and celebrate those
Well,
things.
and maybe we start there, Courtney. Maybe we start by asking people what's really great about us to build our strength. And then we'll ask
Okay.
for other things.
All
I
right.
mean, it
You'll be
is
getting
true.
yeah.
We hear feedback and we think it's all the bad. No, like there is good feedback waiting to be told to you too.
That's right. That's right. All right. You'll get a text from me right after this call.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Soliciting that kind of feedback. Hidden area. So again, vulnerability, which a couple of you also named as something a leader did for you, or what you think of when you think of trust. It creates more openness. It just does. And so when we are vulnerable, other people have permission to do the same. And again, interrupting those stories and knowing really, we talked about the very first session why we do check-ins. Even just knowing how people are showing up during a meeting or to the day can be really powerful, because we can know the whole person, a little bit more of the whole person. And then the unknown area. Yeah, Shannon.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Finish.
Then the unknown area, that curiosity uncovers all the untapped potential. What could be happening if we had open windows in the other three areas? What is possible? And I think that's really exciting. So yeah.
I want to mark a distinction between honesty and transparency. So the Johari window is very much about transparency.
Yes.
And I think the easiest way for my mind to distinguish the two is honesty is what I am in response to somebody's question about me or a direct inquiry toward me. Either I'm honest about it or I'm not. Transparency is what am I voluntarily providing, sharing, exposing, giving over without having to be asked. And I've worked with a lot of leaders that are like, I'm so honest, I will tell them anything if they ask me. That's a
Great.
very different orientation. And so if yours is a bit about that creating transparency, consider that. What can I more voluntarily offer up so they don't have to work so hard to pull it from me? And I think that's an important distinction because they get collapsed sometimes.
Great
You can be
distinction.
very honest and not transparent. You can be very transparent, not so honest. So
Yeah.
they're different. Yeah.
That's great, Shannon.
Right.
Thanks. That's really important.
All right. Fantastic.
So try this with your team.
Go ahead.
You want to invite feedback. You can even start like Shannon and I are going to with, tell me, we have ask one strength and one growth edge.
Yes.
That can be really powerful. And then practice some vulnerability, share something not widely known about yourself, and stay curious. Right. And these are, I think, again, anything we do, particularly if we're leaders in a situation, when we model it, it gives permission for other people to do the same back. So I wouldn't be surprised if you'll see kind of the same response back, whatever you offer.
And Sam's going to be sending a resource of just really great questions for you to consider sharing with your team. Because sometimes, as Courtney mentioned earlier, we think it's about sharing our personal business, and it's really not. I mean, there's parts of our personal life, sure, it's good for people to know, but it is more in that realm of, as a leader, what do they not know about you? And so be considering that. What is there something to share? What frustrates you? What brings you joy? What do you admire about your team? I mean, there's so much that could be in that realm. So she'll send a follow-up of really great questions you can consider for yourself. Okay, great. So in the chat, given what we discussed today, what's one thing you could share with your team this week that could build some trust? What's one way that maybe you can create a bit of healthy transparency? Or is there something about them you could share on behalf of gathering feedback? One thing. What is something you could do or share?
People are pondering.
We have plenty of time. We're good.
Ask for feedback and be grateful for whatever comes back to me. That's a great, thank you, Anne. I think asking for feedback and then saying, nuh-uh, when they give it to you.
Disagree.
Right? We'll probably negate that. So thank you for that, Anne, that caveat to the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kelly, that's like a superhero approach to feedback. I mean, really great. That's
Yeah.
like fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Ask what we need to build
Yeah.
greater trust. The plus delta exercise on what has
Yep.
been working well. Yeah.
That's great, Lauren.
Let people know where you're at.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that that's great, Lauren, because that's a different intent than, I think we all say, oh, I'm so busy. And that's not a real, right? That's just kind of in the air. So if we're really underwater, to name exact like what's really happening, as opposed to just kind of a shout into the void, which I think some of us can do. You
Try to
spelled it
get a
right,
good,
Scott.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Even just sharing the matrix. You're right, Scott, and say, where do you think? That's great.
Mhm. Courtney, do you want to tell them the exercise that you did, just having people do free writing in the 4 quadrants?
Yeah, so I used to do this when I taught social justice to high school seniors, and we talked about the unhidden being kind of our the hidden areas being our blind spots to justice and injustice that we wouldn't be aware of. But we folded the piece of paper like a little window, hamburger, hot dog, if any of you are familiar with the folding. And so I would start and say, okay, everybody, just jot down in your, things you know about yourself and things other people know about you. Easy. And then I would say, okay, write down things that you know about yourself, but other people don't. So they would kind of cover their paper and write a couple things. And then I would say, okay, write down things that other people know about you that you don't know about you. And they would get mad because, of course, they couldn't do it. And so sometimes there'd be friends in the class and they would share things. They were always plenty happy to give me feedback on things I didn't know about myself. So we'd use that as an example. And then we would talk about all the things that were possible that we were missing because of
That's great.
our that fourth quadrant. And so anyway, that's a fun activity you could do with your
Yeah.
team.
Or you start with yourself, do it
I was
first,
gonna say,
kind
do
of
it
notice
yourself.
how it experiences, because everything we do, we're always like, yeah, practice with your team. And there has to be a certain level of trust already present on the team
That's
to
true.
even be willing to share what you read on your paper. So just notice that,
True.
just pay
That's
attention
true.
to that.
I
Great.
did not do it the first week of the semester. That's true. Yes. And
Okay,
teachers love to
beautiful.
share with my team qualities that you're grateful for that they bring because they aren't necessarily a strength of mine.
Yeah,
That is great to say, like, the team benefits from all of these parts that some of us don't have individually.
fantastic. Great work, y'all.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, so keeping it alive. Um, so for us, it is an ongoing activity. So you don't like build trust and then check it off your list and we're good now for the duration of life, because all sorts of factors are either eroding it or they're building it over time. A bold assertion I like to make is that everything we say and do is either building it or eroding it. And it's an interesting perspective as a leader to consider that what I say, how I act, how I show up, how I communicate, it's either building it or I'm eroding it. And it's kind of a binary way of thinking it, but it keeps me a bit in check. Like, how do I need to say this to sustain trust? How do I need to communicate this to build it? Um, and so every time I'd say there's a shift, a change, reorgs, new team members, there is a way that we have to reset around the trust. We forget when a new team member enters in. It's a rebuild. There is a like, now what do we need? Um, so pay attention to that. Is how do you as leaders have this be an ongoing quote unquote to do in your life? If you notice that there is a slowness in productivity, if you notice there's an increase of withdrawal behavior, if you notice energy is dropping, this is a good place to look. It's like, oh, what's happened? How are we not allowing ourselves to show up more fully? Anything else you'd want to say, Courtney, about just kind of keeping it alive, some of this work?
No, I think that it's kind of everyday, all our interactions is why it's so important and why it's so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Great, great. And we can talk about one of the elements of collaboration, this idea of breakdowns. And sometimes when breakdowns happen, we have a decrease in trust, and we'll talk about that in the future.
And if we do it right, on the other side, we have an increase in trust.
That's right. Totally right. Great. Beautiful. Last slide. I think we're about to wrap. Yep.
Yeah.
One word as you check out today, what you're present to, capture the learning, anything you want to say as you head off. I want to say to your weekend, but some of you might have a few hours left before the weekend.
It's only
Others
9:41
are already there.
Pacific time.
Patagonia, what's happening in Patagonia? Are we in the weekend?
No, yeah.
One word to check out from today. I'm checking out. It's not one word because I can never do one word, but just present again to the magnitude of this conversation. It is why I'd say any body of work we're doing with teams and leaders, this is at the heart of it, is how do we continue to build and increase trust? And it's ongoing work, right? Grateful, thankful, eye-opener, appreciative, gratitude, explore, beautiful.
Grateful. Couple explorers, nice.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Fantastic.
Scene to scene, empowered, great. Belonging, love it. All right, everybody.
So next month, is next month, what's our
Next month
topic?
is
Do we know?
belonging. Yeah, because we're going
Oh.
to talk about the Enneagram just a little bit, but yeah.
Is it, we're gonna move, okay, beautiful.
I think so. Or who knows?
We'll surprise you.
It's one of the other elements of collaboration. So we still have belonging left, and we have productive breakdowns, and we have voicing what's good.
Right.
So
Beautiful.
stay tuned for one of those.
All right, cool. All right, thanks everybody. Have a
Thanks,
fantastic
everybody.
weekend. All right, bye. Oh, how can we sign up for future sessions? TJ, Sam, will you put the link for the webinar series back in the chat? So TJ, when you register, there should be a box that
She just did.
says choose all, and then you'll get first Friday meeting invites from here to 100 years from now. You'll get them all. Is that right, Sam? I think I had that right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah.
You'll get the whole series on your calendar.
Yep. So, and if that doesn't work, just ping us and we'll help get you in there. Yep. And as a reminder, if you don't show up, you'll get the recording and all as well. Yeah. Good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, Allie.
Oh, Allie. Hi, Allie. I like reading the chat. Makes
I know.
It's a good way to start the month.
It is.
Maybe we do them every Friday.
Yeah, right.
It's a good conversation every Friday.
Share learning from a prior decision. I didn't see that one. That one's good.
Which one?
Share learning from a prior decision. So here's why I'm doing this, because
Yeah, that's great. Okay.